Good evening. Good to see everyone. We're in Titus 1 and verse 9. Don't know how many of you are keeping track, but I've been here for 8 weeks and we've gotten through 8 verses. I do not want you to think that's the pace we will continue, though. It's just the nature of where we've been. But that's good. That means we've gotten into it, and also that we've had good participation, for which I'm thankful. Which brings us to John's second point that he didn't get to make the other night. I found out that you said you had 2 points, and apparently I stopped you after the first point, John. That's the rumor going around, and I don't want to get in the way. So what's your second point? This is putting someone on the spot in a really, really mean way. Do you know what your second point was, or did you get to 2 points? Were you here last week and you were the one commenting? I'm not sure. Okay. Well, if we figure that out, we're going to get to that. But he made a really good comment last week as we were going through this, and I want to make sure that we covered it all. We're going to read verse 9, and if you recall, last week what we did in going through the verse is the thing we wanted to note was the consistency, what was the core element of the verse. Holding fast the faithful word as he has been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and convict those who contradict. And what we saw was the emphasis then on message. And in each one of these words that is used here conveys something distinct about in the context of what we've been looking at, which is the elders' qualifications. What show that they're ready to be an elder and that they are someone that Titus should put in that position. So notice what that means, though, if that we go back and we look at what he said originally, verse 5, and he's saying what you're looking at, you're going to be appointing elders, and then he says, if a man is blameless, we talk about the qualifications of the home, and then he says, for a bishop must be blameless, and that's when you start this list. And it's on that list, after you go through, and as he's talked about the getting rid of not having those negative characteristics in verse 7, and then 8, adding in the positive characteristics, verse 9 is in conjunction with that, and I'll try to explain it the best I can. This is, I would argue, this is a participle, which is to say he's already got to be doing this. This is as much a qualification. This first part is holding fast the faithful word as he has been taught. That's going to already be here. That's a qualification. And then he's going to be transitioning into why. The whole time we've been talking about these qualifications, we've tried to emphasize that there is a real significant reason, and often reasons why these exist. Because they point to, if they are not there, if they're missing in that person's life, that's going to create problems for an elder. And it's going to create problems for the eldership. Well, this is why this already has to be there, that he's already got a track record of holding fast the faithful word as he's been taught. Now we'll get into that more, but notice what he's did. We showed how that manifests itself. We talked about that it has to be demonstrated so that you can know he has that characteristic. And we've looked at that and done that with every single one of these as to demonstrate that. Well, what I want you to see now is we have to figure out how this is going to manifest itself. He's already telling us why he has to be able to do this. This one, he isn't leaving any doubt at all, because there's a specific problem that already exists. And therefore it is obvious why he needs this characteristic. So let's consider the wording then, because Alex said every single one of these is pretty interesting in its nuance. The first is when he says, holding fast the faithful word. There are different words that will be translated as holding fast in your English translation. This particular one, usually they all have the same core word, which is just to have or to hold. Okay? They all have that aspect to them. But this one, and this is the way they would put words together, they put a preposition on the front of it. And that would kind of give it a little bit different flavor. And this one means, it's kind of interesting, it's anti. And what it means is you are there and you're looking at there's something going on, because it has the idea of instead of, or in exchange of, or exchange for. Well, how could that possibly, how do you hold something in exchange for? Or it can also mean against, as more than one word does. What we find then, as I went in digging on this word, is that you need to envision this as someone, that there's a battle kind of going on, and if someone trying to take something away from you, and you're in a tug of war for it. If you are in a city that is known for crime, okay, ladies, if you're visiting New York City, are you gonna take just any old handbag or purse with you to walk around the streets of New York City? I highly doubt it. Why? Chances are someone can just go and grab it, right? Okay. That's this idea here, is you've got a grip. You know that this is in danger, and where even if someone grabbed at it and pulled, they would not be able to pull it from your grasp. Bill?
Yes, I've read this and talked. This is one who has proven his mettle.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's why he has to have already shown that in a struggle over the word, he's come through that and been there protecting and keeping the word from being abused, stolen away, or in any way harmed in the process. Now we don't think about that being something that just any old member does.
He's got backbone.
Okay, yes. But how do you see that? These are people that are not now serving as elders. So what are we looking for? What kind of traits are we going to see that they will manifest this, that someone is truly holding fast to that, and they're doing it according to the faithful word. Now, this is interesting itself. What are they holding on to?
Well, there have been, controversy or things going on or opportunities within the brotherhood where this individual, as I said, has backbone and has proven his mettle.
Right, but we need to see, though, like, I think that's true. We're always going to be the case about there have been temptations and what someone's saying, but they have to be able to demonstrate all these characteristics. That holding fast it's one thing. Now, here, to show you where I'm going with this and why it matters, is the purpose in needing this qualification matters. Okay, I want to keep that in mind. He has then not just that he has not gone off into error, because that's just a matter of recognition. This is about a more active role in terms of the message of the gospel, that he is then proving capable of handling that in the midst of these kind of controversies. Yeah, that happens. Okay. Now, the question, though, and this is just a small question, it says faithful word. Some have said that, is there a possibility that this is actually referring to Jesus? Now, the thinking would be that in John 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, the same was in the beginning with God, and therefore what you have here is that we're to hold to the faithful Word, and that is we're to hold to Jesus. Okay? Now, the what I would say to that is it's unlikely because the language of using logos, which is the Greek word for word, as referring to Jesus, seems to be reserved for John in his writings. And I'd say specifically because that seems to be related to the writings of proto-Gnostics, which have not yet emerged by the time in which Titus would have been written, and therefore would have been anachronistic as a use.
I'd say this is more like John 4:1, prior to Spirit.
Okay, yes, but I want to get there. Now I've got another question for you. If you've got the message, and it's a faithful word, if this is the word, then what makes the word faithful? It's not the word of faith. It's the faithful word. So what does faithful mean? And in what way is the word itself faithful? Now, the context should help you if you stop and think about it. What makes the word, if we're talking about this right here, this is faithful. How can we say that something that itself is not a person can be called faithful? We're not there yet.
The teaching of the faith.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, that's later. Has he been taught?
This is the American Standard, the correct one to use.
Well, the correct one is the Greek, and it says according to the instruction. But we're still not, I don't care if you're in the American Standard, the King James, the New King James, we're still not there yet, Stan. You hang on.
This is John 8:32, the truth.
How do you know, Bill? How do you know that?
Well, it can't be anything else.
Well, why? No. Says you. Have we established that is it good enough, or you want to say that because it's the word and that the word is used only by John and John is written late and it's within the context of proto-Gnosticism, that's very unlikely? Okay, everybody who understood what I just said, raise your hand. Okay, yeah, that's not a very good batting average right there. Okay, if this is written, when Titus would have been written, most likely it would have been around 63, something like that time frame. And proto-Gnosticism, early form of Gnosticism, we don't think would have been on the scene until likely at least the 80s, maybe the late 70s or the 80s. So we're still, we're talking about likely 20 years removed from that teaching in which Logos had context. And if you read any of their literature, which I don't recommend, it's really nutty. But if you look at that, there's a reason why he chose Logos as reason. It has the idea of reason to it. And so that Jesus is the sense of the mind of God, that kind of thing. That problem hasn't come up yet, and therefore that usage of the word would not be likely to come up with, which is why it is most likely referring to the message and the truth. Okay, but that still doesn't explain why it's faithful. If he's got the message, you're to hold on to the message, unto the gospel, but he says it's the word. Now, whenever say word, as opposed to truth, is usually about the whole. John especially uses that to talk about the whole of what's been revealed. John 1 verse 17. It's used to talk about the ethics involved, truth as reality versus some false idea. Word is used about something else, Duncan. I think, yes. I think that is the connotation that it has. Okay, that because it's dealing with something that is itself in relation to God as the Word, that in its context, which is there are people out there wanting to pull this away in order to supplant it with something else, which is what you see in verse 10. You're dealing with deceivers and idle talkers. And that idea of the idle talking, and matter of fact, it's not just there where you have the words, okay, to try to put this into context. The word that is translated those who contradict has the idea of saying something. If you come down into verse 10, and it has the idea of idle talkers, again, the emphasis on saying something. And the root word is the same. It's lego, which is related to the word logos. So that what you have here is the idea of the word that God is giving that you can trust, as opposed to listening to just anybody off the street that's going to tell you something. These people are holding to what God has given and what is faithful and trustworthy, that it truly is from God, as opposed to someone just making a claim. And so, yes, that is the emphasis of why it would be, as a still an inanimate thing, even though it's the Word of God, trustworthy is the idea. Now we're to. Are you ready to talk about Todd?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm just going at logos, that's the root word for logic.
Yes.
He's saying you're holding on to the logic. The thing that is, the word that is logical.
No, not itself. You're close. It has logic. Actually, comes from the adjective, which is logikos, and which comes from logos. So it is related in that the emphasis is on rationale and content. So you're correct about that. So you have trustworthy, reasonable content. That's the whole when it says faithful word. But now let's get into the part about according to the instruction. Now, what's really interesting here is the word as he has been taught. That's a phrase that actually is according to instruction. Okay, yes, sir. Well, that's the question. Okay, but it says according to, it doesn't say. It's according to the instruction. So, hold on. Hang on, Bill. Hang on, it's all right. It's coming from the book. All right? The instruction is coming from the book. Maybe I should be able to project some of this. There's a way in which you can see that the nature of the word, when it says the faithful word, it's actually this way. According to the instruction, faithful word. Okay? So what that says is that it's wanting to include the instruction as being tied in with the word, which tells you that what you're looking at is someone who is, that the instruction, that is the standard, according to, means that's been laid down as the standard, according to that instruction, and that is tied to the message from God that you can trust. So what are you looking for? You're looking for people, you're looking for men who have tied themselves in, and then they're looking to God's word for authority and for what they're going to learn and what they're going to hold to be the truth. And that they are demonstrating that in their willingness to defend it and not let go of it, and that they will stand in opposition to attempts to do that. Now the word here, when it says, as he has been taught, or according to instruction, there's that word of instruction, and it's a slightly different word when we get to doctrine, but they're related, which is an interesting word play. But now that we've got established what he has to have as his fundamental background of what he's done, he is someone then who has a good, firm grip on what God has revealed, because he's received instruction from God's word, and that is what he clings to. To what extent? So that he may be able. When it says that he may be able, there are two different ways that he could have chosen to do this. It could be just a general word as a noun, as a verb, to say he may be able. This has that he may be capable. So in some cases, if it were the verb, you'd read it in your translations, it'd just say, so that he can. That's not what this is. This is so that he may be powerful enough. That's the word. So he may have the power. He may be powerful in this ability. But choosing that word tells you we're not talking about someone who is passive or just can check off the right box on a questionnaire. All right? I want us to distinguish this. Okay? We have questionnaires for both for incoming students, and then we have questionnaires for our teachers, and we have questionnaires for the outgoing students. Now, let me tell you the difference between the two questionnaires for the outgoing students. Outgoing students, when they come in, it's basically they have a questionnaire and it's yes, no about a number of doctrines. What do you believe? Why? Well, mostly because we don't think that they even know enough yet because they haven't gone to school. We're just wanting to see what they've been taught and accepted. That's what we're trying to find out. Before they graduate, though, it covers all those and a little bit more. But it's not a yes-no questionnaire. It's an essay test. Can you explain, don't just give me a yes-no on this, give me a biblical explanation of what's right on this. Do you see the difference? You think you would do better at an essay test on the Bible or a yes-no test? The students say it doesn't matter with me, but I think it still does. Okay, Duncan? It was a really good thought.
You made a joke and it flew out of my mouth.
That's my fault. So, let me know if it comes back. Okay, so he's got to have a capability, though, then. He has this ability, power. So it's this idea of ability would be really good. Oh, he's got it now? Okay.
Knowing something's not the same as being able to teach something.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Okay, let me show you the easiest way to do this. Okay, for those, let's see how many men here. Okay, you got something now? Or is it the same thing as he said?
Okay, I'm looking at this faithful word that he is faithfully taught. I'm thinking of 2 Timothy 2:2.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Thou hast heard of me of many witnesses, the same commit thou." I'm thinking that's where he.
That's the same idea, yes, that you're passing on, that these are men who've accepted it, but now we're talking about degree. We want to talk about the degree to which they understand it. So what I want to know from you then is we go through, not you specifically, Bill, but
That's where I'm
yeah.
thinking that's where he got his faithful.
Well, but that was faithful men. Faithful men is a little bit different than faithful word. What I'm wanting to look at, though, is building on what Duncan said about the difference between knowing and knowing to a degree where you can teach it, and then knowing it to a degree where you can defend it. Okay, I want you to stop and think about that progression right now. Now, hold on.
In 2 Timothy 2:2, he should be able to teach others.
Yes, but that actually comes after Titus in time. So here's what I want you to think about, okay? Everybody here can sing. Okay, to varying degrees, all right. Varying degrees. Now, one of the things I'll talk about when doing a singing school or teaching the students is there's one thing do you know this song? If I'll ask as a song leader something, well, do you know this song? I may not be familiar with what the congregation is, and I'm going to lead a song. Do you know this song? Yeah. And that means I know it well enough to follow along when someone else is leading it. Right? That's different than, would you like them to lead this song? No. Why? I don't know it that well. Okay, and then, so we got that degree. Then it's a matter of if someone else comes in and they're going to try to out-sing you and lead from the pew, can you keep them from being able to do it? All right? Those are the three stages we have about regarding the word, of how much you need to know. You need to be able to know, not just say, everybody needs to be enough to say, well, that doesn't sound right. I hope everyone is getting that down. That doesn't sound right. But that's not the level of, you need knowledge beyond just that. You need that knowledge. But you need knowledge beyond that to where now you can do what's required in the second part of the verse. Duncan?
So I'm thinking the progression in my mind is, at first, it's been taught to you, and it's kind of this amorphous thought block in your head. Then it progresses to say you can explain it to someone else, and then you have thought arguments against this, and you can counter that.
Yes. Yes. Is that it's not just a matter of I accept it because you said it, but I can explain it. But you're right. It's I can explain it and defend it against our contrary arguments, and that's what you see as a development within this verse. Okay, so he's holding fast is he's got a grip on what the gospel says, but that is just the foundation for it. Okay, that he may be able. Okay, this is purpose now. When it says that, you start with that word is designating the purpose for why this needed to exist. So that he may be able, capable. Now notice what that means. If you don't have a background and enough knowledge that you are hold fast, and remember that whole idea of holding fast means you've already experienced some sort of tug of war with truth, with people trying to do things, and that you won the tug of war battle. Right? That already had to take place. You kind of have to have known what it was like to be in a fight over truth. Okay? And you're standing in that, and you've worked through those problems. Okay? Now, the next step, that has to be there if you're going to be able to take the next step forward. Which is what you get then is, by sound doctrine, related word to the word taught. But not exactly the same. Matter of fact, they're just synonyms almost. So the whole idea of that you received instruction, and now you progress to the point of where you can provide instruction. Okay? I'm not even sure that'll hold up generally, but in this context, it certainly is what it's talking about. So you've got the right kind of instruction and held on to it, but you're also capable now of offering the right instruction otherwise. For you to accept it, it was trustworthy. It was you recognized it as being true to God, faithful to God. But now when you're offering something, sound instruction, which is tied to exhort, okay, far more. Okay, by sound instruction. What does the word sound mean? Healthy. Healthy. That's an implication of it. The word for this is where we get our word hygiene from. That doesn't mean it means we should translate it hygienic. But we need to understand that background of that it is, the reason why I say that, there is a difference between having a disease and being healthy. Right? I currently do not have a disease. I'm not exactly healthy. I'm just stating the obvious here, folks. Okay? So what do you mean? What do we mean then when we're referring to healthy instruction? Doesn't that mean there can be unhealthy instruction? And if he's wanting to say that it's healthy instruction, he's wanting to add something beyond just instruction. It's not just by instruction, but there's a particular character to the instruction that you're wanting the content of that to be healthy. Okay, so what I'm trying to get you to do by saying that is, what are our parallels between when you're thinking about that on a physical level of what is healthy for the body, that we can create a parallel to recognize what is healthy for the spirit? Because clearly he's not concerned about whether or not I can instruct you in yoga or something else. That's not what he's talking about. What are we looking at as our parallel? Duncan? Okay, it's fortifying his, what is he fortifying? Which means strengthening. Okay, that's fine. But what is he strengthening? Our conviction of truth. Okay. But what instruction does that? And is that all? And let me show why. If we have a firm, the instruction you need is sound. And so doctrinally, everything about Jesus is correct. Everything about the Bible, right on. Everything about worship and the work of the nature of the church, we've got it. Correct?
It applies two things directly. One is discretion and discernment to tell between the healthy and unhealthy, and the second is wisdom and application of principles.
Okay, so that what you're saying is that the person has to be capable of knowing what is needed in those, and have the discretion and the wisdom to be able to apply what is needed in those situations. Yes. If you will, but I want to add one more element of this on, and then we'll follow that up. Okay, all right. Yes. Yes, you.
So, if you're talking about what's healthy for the body physically, dessert is nice, but it's not how you healthy grow.
Okay.
So it's the difference between fluffy instruction and meat.
Okay, yeah. The idea of the difference between dessert and those things that are actually healthier meals versus instruction that is, would you fluffy? Fluffy instruction versus the meat, right? Now, is this an arbitrary distinction that we make? I say this because it's really interesting, because what is the meat of the word is sometimes relative to the person perceiving it. That was a real deep lesson. I've heard people say that about something that was of first principles. I'm like, where have you been? Well, they've been a place where they hadn't been hearing first principles. For them, it was just so nice to hear something that was biblical. They thought that was meat. All it was they were finally getting something that wasn't cotton candy. Okay, so was it a huge improvement? Yes, it was. Okay, but there's another element to this I want you to see. Look in chapter 2, verse 1. But as for you, speak the things which are proper for sound doctrine. He's telling Titus, you need to be preaching sound doctrine. And that's a colon, and then he starts this list of things to tell people. Now, if you go through and you look at that list in chapter 2, for the most part, that is not a long list of doctrinal kind of issues. It's very real-to-life issues. And the reason why I wanted to tie that in is for us to understand this. You can have a completely strong, correct, down-the-line understanding of every issue in the brotherhood and still be starving spiritually. If you're not complementing that with the kind of issues that have to do with how you need to be living your life. And we need to make sure that healthy instruction involves both. So that what I'm talking about is, we're going to be talking about the preaching on the church, and we're going to be preaching about marriage, and we're going to be talking about worship, and we're going to be talking about the challenges you have in your daily life. It's the whole of that is healthy instruction. Why? Because it's the whole of that is how God has provided his message. Go look at, especially Paul's epistles. The first part is doctrinal. The second part is because all that's true, here's how it needs to be implemented in your life. That was his basic structure for pretty much every epistle he gave in some way, some sections, but mostly that's it. Here's what you need to understand, and here's how you need to live it. And what ends up happening sometimes